3 months after my supervisor humiliated me in front of 23 people and deleted my entire year's work, I got a phone call. Not from her, from the CEO. And this time he wasn't calling to explain, he was calling to beg. Stonebridge was bleeding, clients were leaving, and the woman who once called my work garbage had been fired in silence. I should have felt satisfied, but I didn't. Because when someone burns your name into the floor, sometimes the cleanest revenge is walking right back in and showing them what happens when the thing they erased turns out to be the only thing keeping them alive. So yes, I went back, but not for redemption. I went back to clean up their mess, with the truth they never wanted to face, and what happened next might just be the most powerful part of this story. Stick with me, because you need to hear how this ends. The call came on a rainy Tuesday, gray sky, cold coffee. I was reviewing notes for Harold's supply chain meeting when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen? Thomas Greer, CEO of Stonebridge Analytics, the same man who stood silent while my supervisor erased a year of my work. The same man who watched me walk out without a word. I stared at the screen for a moment and answered. His voice was calm but worn thin. "Richard, we're in trouble. I need to see you." He didn't ask how I was. He didn't offer an apology. Just a short pause, and desperation leaking through the phone line. Stonebridge had lost 3 major clients in 6 weeks. Their Q3 revenue dropped by almost 40%. Departments were pointing fingers, and the board, they were demanding a fix. "I should have listened to you," he said quietly. "Victoria's gone." That name hung in the air like smoke. Victoria Langford, my former supervisor, the woman who smiled while hitting delete on everything I'd built. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. Instead, I asked one question. "What do you want from me?" Thomas hesitated, then said something I'll never forget. "I want you to come back, not as staff, as the one who can rebuild what we destroyed." It wasn't a job offer, it was a surrender. And for a moment, I didn't say a word, because part of me wanted to hang up, to let them drown in their own arrogance. But another part of me, the builder, the man who still believed in doing things right, wanted something else, not revenge, redemption on my terms, so I said, "Let's meet." And as I put the phone down, I knew this time I wouldn't just return to the building. I'd return with the truth. Have you ever had someone call you back after they tore everything down? Stick around. You'll want to hear how this one unfolds. We met 2 days later, at the same corner cafe where I used to write client notes during lunch breaks. The place hadn't changed. Same scratch tables, same waitress who still remembered I liked my coffee black. But Thomas looked different. The crisp, polished CEO I once knew now looked tired. Tie loosened, eyes sunken, fingers trembling slightly as he slid a folder across the table. Inside, a blank contract. "Write your own terms," he said. "I just need you to stop the bleeding." No pride, no posture, just a man sitting across from someone he once overlooked, hoping I could save the company he let sink. I didn't touch the folder. Instead, I asked, "Why now?" Thomas sighed. "Because you were right. Clients aren't leaving because of the market. They're leaving because they don't feel seen anymore." He hesitated. "And because Victoria convinced me your way was inefficient. I let her erase it, and now it's costing us everything." I stared at him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to walk out, leave the folder untouched, let them learn the hard way. But I also remembered Martha's voice on that final call. "If you ever build something new, I want in." I remembered Harold saying, "You actually cared." That wasn't just about me. That was about what was lost, what still needed to be rebuilt. So I said, "I'll come back, but not for you." Thomas blinked. "Then, for what?" I looked him in the eye. "For them. Because some things are bigger than pride. Have you ever had to return to the wreckage someone else made, just to save the people still inside it? Stick with me. This is where the real work begins." The moment I stepped through Stonebridge's front doors again, everything felt colder. Not the air, the silence. Receptionists didn't smile. Team leads didn't look up. The same people who once asked me for client insights now stared hard at their screens, pretending I wasn't there. I wasn't surprised. When you return after walking through fire, people don't greet you with applause. They brace for what you'll burn next. Thomas met me by the elevators. "You still remember your way?" I didn't answer. I just walked, past the break room where I used to joke with interns, past the glass wall where Victoria once lectured about efficiency. Now, her office was empty, stripped, just a chair and a lonely desk. I didn't go in. I went straight to the conference room. There, a dozen mid-level managers sat waiting, tense, uncertain. Some of them had whispered behind my back when I was still here. I recognized the faces. One of them, Kevin, head of client accounts, cleared his throat. "So, are you here as a consultant or something else?" I looked around the room, then walked to the whiteboard. I picked up a marker and wrote 2 words. "We listen." Not "we fix," not "we optimize," just that. They stared, confused. Then I said, "Starting today, I don't care how you used to handle clients. I care about what they say when you're not around." No one spoke, but I saw it in their eyes, resistance. This wasn't going to be easy, and that was fine, because I didn't come here to be liked. I came to tear down what never worked. Have you ever walked back into a place that once broke you, only to rebuild it your way? Stay close, because what came next shocked even me. I started with the client files. What I found made my stomach turn. Canned responses, copy-paste check-ins, entire relationship logs reduced to 3-word notes like "call complete" or "issue resolved." There were no names, no birthdays, no follow-ups on surgeries, anniversaries, lost loved ones, just data points. And yet, these were the people who once trusted us with their businesses, their livelihoods, their stories. I pulled up a file from Martha Ellington's company, what used to be a $12,000 a month account. The last message from our team: "Per contract, delivery fulfilled." No acknowledgement of her 15-year milestone. No check-in on her staff after layoffs. Just cold lines in a spreadsheet. And then I found the email, buried deep in the archive, forwarded between 2 managers 6 months ago. Subject line: Richard's client notes. Too emotional? Attached was a message from Victoria herself. "Delete anything that isn't transaction-focused. We don't need birthday cards or dog updates. It's unprofessional." There it was. Proof that the very thing holding our client base together, empathy, had been systematically erased. That afternoon, I called Harold Whitman. "Hey, Richard," he answered. "Heard you were back." We talked briefly about Max, his golden retriever. Then I asked him, "When did Stonebridge last reach out to check on your product launch?" He paused. "They haven't, not in months." His voice was tired, disappointed, but not angry, because Harold didn't expect much from them anymore. That's what broke me most. Have you ever watched something you built with care get turned into a machine that forgets people are human? Stick with me, because soon they'd realize just how much those little moments were worth. That night I stayed late at the office. The halls were empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and on the long table in the corner room I laid out every report Victoria had buried. Client retention, feedback logs, referral drops. Each one painted the same story. As empathy went down, revenue followed. I didn't need a spreadsheet to tell me that, but I built one anyway. Not for them, for the truth. I cross-referenced my old client notes, Harold's dog, Martha's staff, George's bookstore launches with revenue spikes that followed those calls. Over $200,000 in retained business tied directly to personal engagement. Then I printed it all. 53 pages, labeled, highlighted, annotated. This wasn't a gut feeling anymore, it was evidence. At 2 a.m., I stood in front of the whiteboard, dry marker in hand, and wrote 4 words. They left because we forgot. Not because of price, not because of delays, because we stopped listening. We stopped caring, and somewhere along the line, sufficient became more important than human. The next morning, I asked for a department meeting. Thomas looked nervous. "Are you sure?" he asked. I nodded. "I won't yell, I won't blame, but they need to see it." Have you ever reached that moment when the only way forward is to put the truth on the table, no matter who's in the room? Stay with me, because what happened in that meeting changed everything. The conference room was packed, 12 department heads, a few senior managers, and Thomas standing in the back, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. I didn't bring slides, no laser pointer, no financial projections, just one thing. I walked to the whiteboard and wrote, "When did we stop listening?" Then I stepped back. No one moved. No one spoke. I let the silence do its job. Then I opened my folder and pulled out a tablet. "I want you to hear something," I said. One by one, I played short clips, recordings from clients who had quietly left. Martha: "I used to feel like a partner. Now I feel like a line item." Harold: "No one even noticed I stopped calling." George: "They sent 3 invoices, but never asked if I was okay after my surgery." The room began to shift, faces changed. Some looked away, others blinked fast. No charts, no scolding, just voices, real people telling the truth. I paused the tablet. This is why we're bleeding, not because of pricing, not because of competition, but because we forgot who we were serving. I looked at Kevin, the same manager who once said empathy was inefficient. He didn't argue, he just stared at the whiteboard, and for the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. Have you ever watched a room full of professionals realize they've been doing it wrong all along? Stick around, because the rebuilding started right after this. The next morning, I let 4 people go. Not because they made mistakes, but because they refused to change. They still believed speed mattered more than sincerity. That clients didn't care who answered the phone, as long as someone did. I couldn't rebuild on that foundation, so I cleared the space and started fresh. I brought in 2 former colleagues from Summit Point, people who knew what it meant to ask about a client's dog and remember their daughter's graduation date without a CRM reminder. Our first team meeting wasn't in the conference room. It was in the break room. Coffee, no laptops, just a marker, a wall-sized notepad, and one question. Who was your last client? Some answered with names. Others paused. Then I asked, what did they share with you? Not about business, about life. That's when the silence returned, because they couldn't remember. Not their birthdays, not their concerns, not their kids' names. We spent that week doing something no one expected. No strategy decks, no sales scripts, just calling old clients to ask how they were, not to sell, to reconnect. One woman cried, another laughed for the first time in weeks. A few asked if we were calling because we wanted them back. I said, we just wanted to say sorry for forgetting you were more than a contract. And slowly the room began to shift. Hearts opened, walls came down. Not in numbers, in tone. Have you ever had to retrain people, not in skill, but in humanity? Stay with me. Because what happened next would shake the entire industry. It started with a single article. Man fired for wasting time, now saving the company that erased him. Local business journal, small readership. But the headline struck a nerve. Within days, the article made its way to LinkedIn, then to industry newsletters, then national outlets. People weren't just reading, they were sharing. One afternoon, I sat at my desk, cold coffee in hand, inbox flooding. Consultants, former clients, even a few CEOs. Richard, your story reminded me why I got into this business. I didn't realize how far we drifted from what matters. I thought I was the only one who cared anymore. I didn't ask for attention. But apparently, reminding the world that people matter had become radical. Our phones rang off the hook, not with complaints, with curiosity. What are you doing over there? How did you rebuild trust that fast? And then came the LinkedIn post, just a photo of our whiteboard. When did we stop listening? No caption, no hashtag. It hit 2 million views in a week. Comments poured in, some emotional, others angry at themselves because they realized they'd done the same. Forgotten the people behind the purchase orders. That week we didn't sign new clients, but we didn't lose any either. And sometimes, that's the real win. But just as the tide started turning, I got an alert. A former client, one we hadn't reached yet, had just signed with someone else. Not just someone. Victoria, have you ever rebuilt something with your bare hands, only to see the very person who broke it trying to steal it back? Stay with me, because the quiet war was just getting started. The message came on a Wednesday. Richard, I thought you should know. Victoria contacted me. It was from George Tillman, one of our most loyal former clients. I read the rest of his message slowly. She offered us a 30% discount, said Stonebridge was rebuilding under fresh leadership, told us you were just using emotions to win headlines. I leaned back in my chair, eyes closed, hands folded. She was playing dirty, undercutting prices, whispering half-truths, and dangling desperation like a lifeline. But I wasn't surprised. People like Victoria don't change. They adapt their strategy but keep the same intent, control. That afternoon, 2 more clients forwarded similar emails. Same pitch, same language. She says you never really delivered results. I didn't get angry. I printed the emails, then opened our latest client report, 96% retention, highest in 5 years. I laid both side by side on the table, one built on manipulation, the other on truth. Instead of replying, I sent a message to each client. You don't owe me loyalty, just clarity. Compare how you felt then to how you feel now. Choose what brings you peace. No sales pitch, no defense, just an invitation to remember. And one by one, they did. George called the next morning. We're not leaving, Richard, because for the first time in years, it feels like someone actually gives a damn. Have you ever watched someone try to steal back what they once destroyed, only to realize it's already moved on without them? Stick around. Because what I did next was the final chapter Victoria never saw coming. It happened at the annual industry conference. Packed ballroom, suits everywhere. Lanyards, name tags, small talk echoing through crystal chandeliers. I was scheduled to speak on client trust. 5 minutes before I went on stage, she walked in. Victoria Langford. Her posture, perfect. Her smile, practiced. Her badge listed her as Executive Consultant Cinera Corp. She wasn't done, not by a long shot. We locked eyes across the crowd. She raised a glass toward me, mocking, maybe. or challenging. I didn't react. After my speech, people clapped, asked questions, took notes, but Victoria approached last. "Nice performance," she said, cool as glass. "You're good at selling stories." I didn't blink. "I'm not selling anything," I said. "I'm just remembering what you forgot." She smirked. "You always did love drama." I paused, then leaned slightly closer. "No, I just never liked watching people get erased." Her smile faded. "I'm not here to fight, Victoria," I said, "because I already won." She didn't respond. She turned, heels echoing down the hall. Later that evening, a board member pulled me aside. "We're replacing 2 names on the ethics committee. Want to join?" I smiled, not because I wanted revenge, but because doing things right had opened doors no sabotage ever could. Have you ever looked someone in the eye, not to defeat them, but to show they never really broke you? Stay with me, because what happened after that might just be the sweetest part of it all. 2 weeks after the conference, I returned to my office at Summit Point. The sun poured in through the east-facing window. Same light, same desk. But something felt different. Peace has a weight to it. You don't notice it until it's yours. I sat down, opened my inbox, and began reading through the morning updates. Then one message stopped me. Subject: "You probably don't remember me." It was from a man named Jeremy, former client, small account, barely crossed my desk years ago. But his words: "Richard, you once called me after my wife passed. Not to talk contracts, just to check in. I never forgot that." He went on, "I'm retiring next month, but before I go, I wanted to say thank you. You showed me that business isn't about numbers, it's about people who choose to care." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. One call, one gesture, and 5 years later, someone still remembered. Not the discount, not the pitch, the moment. That's when it hit me. All those times I thought I was wasting time, writing notes, asking about dogs, remembering birthdays, those were never small things. They were the work, the real work. Victoria never understood that. Stonebridge never measured it. But the people on the other end of the line, they never forgot. That's why I did what I did, not to win, not to get even, but to prove that decency still works, that in a world chasing speed, the quiet man who slows down and listens still matters. Later that afternoon, I walked past our team lounge. 2 junior consultants were debating whether to send a handwritten thank you card to a client. One said, "Isn't that kind of old-fashioned?" The other replied, "Maybe, but Richard does it." I smiled, kept walking, because that's legacy, not in titles, not in plaques, but in the habits people choose to carry forward because you showed them it's worth it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of revenge no one sees coming. Not loud, not angry, just living well and letting them wonder how you became everything they tried to erase. 2 years ago, I stood in a room full of colleagues and watched a year of my work vanish with one keystroke. No apology, no explanation, just the sound of silence, and a supervisor who thought she was teaching me a lesson. I left that room with nothing in my hands, but something in my heart told me, this isn't the end, it's the beginning. And it was. Because what they tried to erase wasn't on a hard drive. It was in how I treated people, in the way I remembered their names, in the way I asked about their fathers, their surgeries, their daughters' recitals, in the way I made them feel like more than just a number. That's something no one can delete, not with a click, not with a policy, not even with power. What happened after? Well, you've seen it. The same company that humiliated me came back for help. The same system that called empathy inefficient collapsed under its own coldness, and the people, They remembered. Because people don't stay for the product. They stay for how you made them feel when they needed you most. These days, I walk into Summit Point with purpose. My name's not on the building, but my fingerprints are on the culture. New hires ask why we take extra time on client calls, why we send handwritten notes, why we remember birthdays. And someone always says that's the Richard way. I don't say much, because I don't need to. I've learned that the most powerful revenge isn't about proving someone wrong. It's about living in a way they never believed you could, and doing it so well that even they have to stop and wonder where they went wrong. So if you've ever felt dismissed, if someone told you that the way you work or the way you care isn't scalable or smart enough, don't let them shrink you, because one day they'll circle back, not with applause, but with regret. And by then, you'll already be too far ahead to need their validation. If this story spoke to you, share yours in the comments. Maybe it's time someone finally heard it. You never know who's listening.